Mga tong aja gano, mga tong.
Water I lose here is transpiration. That's the only water I lose. Okay, give you an idea, 440 plants on the table. So you're looking at 4.4 plants on a square meter. Malaysia and that, they go anything up to 8 plants a square. But obviously they don't do the sizing that we do. The tables were originally designed on 240, but with the temperature in summer, we found the higher densities. We don't change the mix in the fertilizer. We don't change fertilizer concentrate. But the higher the density, the better the plants survive, because they create their own macroclimate, as you can see there. They create their own. But when we harvest the table clean. So whether you've got big or small, you take everything. So when you start producing commercially, if you're doing processing, it's a little bit easier because you've got such a wide range that you can play in as far as plant maturity goes. But when you start doing pre-packs and everything else, it gets a bit more difficult because of plant size. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing is variety. There's 3 or 4 different companies in South Africa. You're obviously all aware of them, Starkers, Mayford Seeds, those kind of guys. All of this stuff is Spanish based. It's the closest varieties climate wise that we can get to compare when you compare heat units and that kind of thing. So the Spanish varieties have a tendency to do better in summer. They do horrible in winter. So on the 1st of May, we start switching varieties. So I switch varieties on anything up to 2 or 3 times a year, depending on our worst production times are the shoulder months, spring and autumn, because you're getting a South African variety going into a Spanish variety or the other way around. So it becomes very, very difficult with trying to predict production. These are all on fixed orders and fixed production, so I know every week I have to produce. I'll give you an idea now. This house holds just over 110,000 plants. Okay, average weight of a plant that we send to processing now is about 150 grams. If you took it out now, these will go next week. If you had to break it off, it's 150 grams. Since the 27th of September up until first week in January, this house has already produced 12.5 tons of lettuce. When you consider each plant's only 150 grams, it becomes a bit mind-blowing. Return on capital, if you do it this way, you're looking at an 18 to 22% return on capital. But what's the trick? You've got to have the contract. You cannot do this and put it onto a local market. If you don't have a market for it, don't do it. There is school fees. You do pay school fees. Red varieties take up to a week and a half longer than green varieties. But if you've got contract, it is really worth it, because remember, this is planted 31st of January. So I know next week this is gone. It's already sold. Provided we're within the quality standards. And so you just carry on. So we've got a constant order for the rest of now up until the first week in April of about 40 seed trays, and we use a 216 seed tray. In other words, there's 216 plants, so there's 2 seed trays on a table roundabout. So we've got a constant order of seedlings that just keep coming. I sit with them end of the week, end of the month, and we change the varieties, and then we go up to 96 trays a week that just keep coming. So it's in the cycle the whole time. So you're literally planting at one end and harvesting on the other end. It's a full. This house is 5,500 squares. Run by. They do all the planting, all the harvesting, and then obviously they've got a tractor driver as well. It's 2 people that run this whole house. Scary. If you do this open field, you're looking at a labour force of anything from 35 to 42. Open field. Just give you an idea.
So how many days does it take to plant if it's 2 people?
Those 2 people, they plant 127 trays a day.
Sure.
The biggest problem that we've got with this, the baskets that have to be washed and cleaned. We've designed a washing machine especially for them, because you break it out and you've literally got to, you leave them in the sun to dry out, And then you physically got to scrub every single one. Because remember, my biggest enemy, Pythium and Fusarium. You get Pythium or Fusarium in your main water source, good night, goodbye hydroponics. Doesn't matter what you do, you can treat it with whatever you like. Don't get rid of Pythium and Fusarium. You can do it if you use reverse osmosis, but it's going to cost you a fortune. So that's just the lettuce, and then I'll show you peppers quickly. The only thing we do is that's why we put a double net. Because if you take this off, it's a white Israeli crystalline. That's designed especially for winter, because I magnify my UV light. Now in summer, my biggest problem with lettuce, day length's too long in the Cape. You see, you guys have been, if you go up to Joburg, you see everything's under net. It's got nothing to do with sunlight or anything in Joburg. It's there for one reason. Yeah, we do it for the right reasons. We've got the white net for winter. That, if you do it without the white net, you lose about 10 days extra that you add on because of the cloudy days that we get. And then in summer I come in, this is a 40% black and a 40% white with a 20% crystalline on top. So we're almost at 70% roundabout if you had to measure it. Temperature difference between a black-white net like this one and an all-black and an all-white net, 7 degrees. Cooler under this than it is under 3 white crystalline nets. Sharing coffees. 2 squares green area, like I said to you. We're at about 1.7 plants on a square meter, but we double stem. If you have a look at all the peppers, they've all got a double stem on. Some have got triples. Now, for those of you who have done it, peppers have to be pruned. So this whole house is about 9,000 plants. Hoeveel het jy hier? 9,700 plants. Hoeveel mense? 6 people, 9,700, and they get pruned every single week. So if you miss 2 weeks, you affect your production by about 15% on size and that kind of thing. Okay, slightly different from what you saw on the other side. When we get it from the nursery, it comes already in a block. It's a bit of a mindset change in South Africa, because getting it on it, so we've got the slab underneath, which is this one, yeah, and then you've got a block on top of it. So what we try and do is, this house was planted 3 Augustus, 2nd of August this house was planted. So we had these plants at 30 centimeters already when we got them. So when we get them from the nursery, what we do is we put them in the hot houses at the nursery. So we actually heat the root system for them. Exactly the same as what you guys have got on the other side of the hot beds. So we get a plant that's already 30 centimeters tall. The idea being that I score time. So this house was planted on the 2nd of August. I harvested the first fruit of this house in the first week in November. So I score 3 weeks. But you pay for it in nursery costs. But that 3-week score over December is worth round about premium wise 25 to 30 rand a kilo. Premium. For that 3 weeks that you can score. So when you take into consideration the block and the plant costs you, without seed, costs you about 10 rand and 41 cents. For a 30 rand premium on production, it's a bit of a no-brainer. But you have to have a nursery that's capable of propagating in winter in the Cape. Yeah,
how many tons do you get per this whole house, like per plant? How do you?
This house, hopefully, if I get what I want, in the real world, 19 kilograms a square. So there's 3,000 squares, so it gives you 19. I'll be lucky. I don't think I'm going to get to 19. I'll get to between 15 and 17. Like I say, currently now we're sitting on 25. Cecile, 25,000 kilos. 25 tons currently. And that is up to, there you go, so it's up to hip height, so we're not even halfway. There's the next fruit that will be harvested. We've still got to go to the top. We will go to the top wire. Biggest restriction on peppers? Pollination only happens above 17 degrees. And remember, this house is all hand pollinated. There's no bees. It's got insect net. So we rely again on Suezki, which is a natural predator that we use for red spider mites, Spidex, which we use for red spider mite, all the natural bugs and that running around in here to do a lot of our pollination. And then every single day when the house gets to 21 degrees, there's somebody who comes through and knocks all these plants. to make sure that we can get fruit. So it's a little bit more intense, a lot more gratifying than lettuce, because you can see it for longer. And then what happens is, as the girls go up, you'll see there's been a green fruit that came out of here. That green fruit also gets harvested. You can remember, this is generally a red hybrid. It's not a green hybrid. But sometimes we fall behind on your pruning, and that. What we do is we take that smaller fruit when price is at its premium, and you can actually sell it for more than what you can get for the red fruit. So once again, it's about market. And remember, if you do this on a large scale, there's 6.5 hectares of something similar to this in KZN. He's ended up having to buy 2 trucks to transport his stuff to Joburg because he killed his own market, because of the production you can get out of it. All right. Yeah, otherwise, guys, it's pretty basic. 2 litre an hour drippers. Okay, something about the house: insect net all the way around. If you're going to come and play in the Cape, there's a thing called whitefly. It's non-negotiable, unless you want to spray. I don't spray at all. Then what you've got on top there is what we call an alu net. It's an alufoil net that reflects sunlight. So I control how much sunlight these plants get, and it controls heat as well. So once again, remember I said to you, we irrigate according to radiation. That also determines how we open and close. That determines irrigation cycles in a day and that kind of thing. The curtains, all 5. There's a roof curtain as well that you'll see is also open. This house should be functioning on about 70% humidity. Quiet trick with peppers: if you can't smell peppers walking into a greenhouse, there's something wrong with your humidity. It's too low. The higher your humidity, the less chance of powdery mildew. It sounds crazy, but it's true, promise. But the higher your humidity, you get a problem with red spider mite. So it's the trade-off. So what we do with this house is we've got what we call humidity treatments. 20 past 5 in the morning, this whole house opens. Like, as in those curtains will be rock bottom. The roof will be open, all of this. So we let all the humidity out the house. Everything, until about 6:15. And then at 6:15 we close up, and with the misting system and that, we slowly build humidity again. By 10 o'clock, it will be at 70% humidity. Temperature outside 42. Close this house up, close the net. Temperature inside 36, 33, somewhere around about there. And we measure plant temperature with infrared thermometers. We try as hard as we can not to go above 33 degrees plant temperature. 33 degrees plant temperature starts to cook itself. You lose flower, you get flower abortion and stuff like that. And like I say, once again, it's all integrated pest management. All the ladies that work in here have been taught to scouts and everything else. When we put the plants out at 6 weeks, just after 5 weeks, we do 2 systemic drenches, and that's the only chemical that will touch these plants until probably week after next, when we'll do our first spider mite sprays, because the population's just got too big. Everything works on integrated pest management, so we count population all the time. We can handle a certain amount of, we've got a threshold on spider mite, and we've got a threshold on powdery mildew, but otherwise everything it's all in balance. Because once you spray, to get the balance back is not easy. So once we'll start spraying permanently if we have to. Second week in May, 3rd week in May, but then it'll be a fixed spray program until we finish this house in the 1st week in July. Then it'll be a fixed chemical spray program every single week. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. Any questions? Pretty simple. It is, I promise. Remember, the plant tells you everything. It's the easiest way to understand it. This thing tells you absolutely everything. And you guys have got probably one of the best laboratories around when it comes to identifying bacteria and funguses. We use them often. But the leaves will tell you everything. It tells you when it's short, it tells you when it's over. Leaf size, internode length. The biggest secret to doing anything in greenhouses. If you can get that internode length consistent throughout, you guaranteed the production. You guaranteed the production. Give you an idea, when they take it out, the girls will come through, we take a blade, we cut the string out. Well, what we do is we take off all the clips first. You'll see they're held together by a whole lot of clips. Each and every one that doesn't damage the plant. Cut the strings off. We take the same blade with that blockers, we cut it off. We take the plant, we put it outside, we wait for it to dry and we burn it. And then we come through with sodium metalaxate. And we poison the bag, it kills all the roots and everything else. And we start building with trichoderma. Within 3 weeks the new plants will be in again. Okay.
The blocks are reused, right?
Blocks.
This,
No, the slabs are reused. The little blocks are not. Little blocks are not go for that.
What's in the slab?
It's straight cocoa peat moss imported. Yeah, it's imported from. You get them all over the world. This is from Cocoa Green. For those of you who go into hydroponics, learn now. There's a washed product and there's an unwashed product. To give you an idea, I had my first set of slabs that I got wasn't treated. Cost me 2 cucumber crops and about 280,000 rand on each crop. Okay, the difference between a washed product and an unwashed product is what we call it buffering. When you get that, they send it to you in the slab, it's been processed, it'll tell you what the fiber length is. But remember that cocoa peat has got no anions and cations, so it can't hold on to anything, it's salt. So you actually have to rinse the bag with calcium nitrate. And then you charge your bag, and only once you've rinsed your bag with calcium nitrate can you start adding fertilizer. And we were sold a product that they said was washed, and it wasn't. Expensive mistake. So what's the golden rule? Wash it anyway, do it yourself, it costs you nothing. Only costs you your calcium nitrate. Sodium, salt, sodium and chlorine are your biggest fears. Cocoa peat has a tendency to hold on to sodium. We get to a stage where we switch the fertilizer off at this stage, where we switch it off for 2-3 days just to rinse the bags out, just to put water volume through the bag, just to get your salts out, and then you build again. You build again. Don't do it for too long, otherwise your plants don't like you, they get upset. They get upset. So yeah, it's like I say, and remember hydroponics is a new thing, aquaponics is a new thing, you're going to hear it. Like I say, you guys have been the first, and the guys from last year with Francois crowd are the only. You guys will be one of the few people besides my shareholders that will be allowed up here. Because every Tom, Dick, and Harry walking at the gate who's selling something to do with hydroponics and aquaponics has got advice for you. You know where your best advice is? This thing looking at you here. It'll tell you what's wrong. It'll tell you what's wrong. You can have 6 different consultants, and I can guarantee you're going to get 6 different fertilizer programs for the same plant. How does it work? Plant needs what it needs. So when you find a program that works for you, stick to it. You can play with it. It's not going to cross with you. Stay away from salt, stay away from chlorine. Water quality, water quality, water quality. Stay away from salt and chlorine. And if you find a consultant that you enjoy, stick with him. But don't be scared to test his theories. An idea on consultants. We had guys doing pest and disease for us before I went on to IPM management. I've had this house 4 years. My first year, my pest and disease cost me about 130,000 rand for the first 6 months of the year. I went on to IPM a year later. This house cost me less than 32,000 rand a year. A year. You spent 132,000 rand in 6 months. Why? Because when he consults, if he's not selling you something, he feels as though he's not working. In our industry here, around here, well, my people that work down in the pack house and that, we don't call them consultants, we call them insultants. Because all he's come to do is insult your wallet. But like I say, you've got to be careful, you just use it, the plant will tell you. Yeah.
Hoe gereeld word die afvalblare en goed opgetel?
Een keer a week.
Een keer 'n week.
This house is not specially dressed for you, I promise. This house always looks like this. That lettuce always looks like that. These people didn't know you were coming. It's basics, basics, basics. You're going to learn it wherever you go through plant pathology. Dead leaves are absolute no-no. Dead roots, no-no. If you're remember, you're in a total monoculture here. You've got nothing here to defend these plants except themselves. So you create absolutely everything. The microclimate that's here is created by us with the nets and everything else. You can walk in between the rows, you're more than welcome. You'll feel the temperature difference standing here and standing in there. That's created by the plant. It's created by a happy plant. You're creating everything for this plant. There's nothing on the outside of the world that can help this plant. Nothing can get in. And if it can get in, it's usually not your friend. Put it that way. It's usually not your friend when it does get in. So yeah, it's cleaned like it. People say to me, why weed mat and not white plastic? I started off on white plastic. Everybody says, yeah, but the extra sunlight you get off white plastic. Try it. I disagree. We have weed mat for a reason. If a dripper falls out of a tray or something, go straight through the soil. You don't have a mud bath underneath. You don't have an algae problem. You don't have fungal gnats. But that's something I learned long after I made the mistake when I first put the house up. You don't have to do the paving. If you don't do paving, I suggest put in weed mat, something the girls can walk on. Because dust in a house like this and red spider mite like this, that's one of the reasons why it's paved. You'll see the bottoms are all paved as well. The bottoms are all paved as well. It just makes your harvesting easier too. It makes your harvesting easier. Ja.
Wat sal die setup cost per vierkante meter min of meer uitwerk vir so 'n tipe huis?
575 rand a square.
Can you just repeat because it is understood?
What's your setup cost per square meter? It's about 575 rand a square. That's with sonnegrond voorbereiding, né? Sonneterras en so wat dit is. Platform.
Is this included like the structures?
This house standing here, you're looking at it now, is 1.6 million.
1.6 million.
1.6.
1.6.
But remember, it's the Rolls Royce, eh? There's technology in there. There's a full, there on the thing, there's a full weather station. Okay? The weather station, there's the full box in there that monitors. Nothing here is done by hand. It's all done by computer. You know what I mean? So, you know, I've got 4 years of climate data that I can physically go into May, from May last year, and we can take it, copy and paste it, and this house will work exactly the same as what it did in May last year. You do pay for technology. You do pay for technology.
Is it 1.6 for all the equipment and machines included?
Roundabout, yeah. Without the fancies, without the paving, without the blocks. I'm talking about just house.
How much are the blocks? Are they expensive?
Depends where you buy it from. Depends how much you're bringing in. I'll be honest with you, 3,000 squares is not an economically viable unit unless you do big numbers. This is not an economically viable unit. The reason why I've got it to where it is now is because I'm on contract, fixed price, and I can do tonnage. Okay. Going forward, you'll see there's another 2 terraces here. Hopefully the next time you're here, you're going to see a house of about 1.6 hectares. One hit. Why? Because with the same 6 girls, I reckon I can run 8,000 squares. Your biggest uncontrollable cost in hydroponics is labor. Think about it. You can control exactly how much fertilizer it is. I can work it out to the litre, how much each plant has received. To the litre. I can tell you exactly what my runoff, how much runoff water I've had in the 365 days. So it comes down to your maintenance costs. These houses work on a fixed maintenance cost. You can work on about between 8 and 17 rand a square per season, depending on what kind of wind you had and that kind of thing. So the only controllable, those are all controllable. Your labor is your biggest asset, because they do all your pest management for you if you teach them right. They do all your harvesting, they do all your planting. If you could utilize them better over a bigger surface area, your man hours come down. For every man hour you take out in farming, you're saving anything between 17 and 22%. Minimum wage, 70% of 90% of the 20 rand is 18 rand an hour. For every man hour you save, you're putting 15 to 20% back into your pocket. So it's about being efficient with your people. All comes down to efficiencies. That's why my row widths are 1.6 and not 1.8. Get more plants into a square. The same amount of people, more plants in the square. It's all that sum, guys. It's what you're going to play with. Farming, 3 indeterminate factors: labor, fuel, and electricity. Good luck budgeting on those ones, chaps, because not even I can do it. I've been doing this for 10 years. We don't know. Remember, obviously this place all operates on a generator. As soon as the power drops, everything functions like normal.
Why not solar panels?
Show me a solar panel company in South Africa that can guarantee me 85% efficiency, and I'll do it with pleasure. Do you know that solar panels boil? Wellington gets to 42 degrees. The efficiency at 42 degrees on a solar panel, you lose about 35%. Do you know that solar panels have to be clean? Every level of dust on a solar panel, you lose between 8 and 12%. So I can put up a panel array, It's going to cost me a fortune to clean. Where am I going to find the water? Remember, I'm totally reliant of all my roof water. We've had a look at it. It doesn't matter which way you try and turn it upside down. A combination of both. What I'm busy having a look at now, that dam above you, is floating solar panels. Because I save on the evaporation of my dam. The water quality gets better because I don't have the algae problem, and I'm getting electricity. The other big problem with solar panels, if you're going to use it, put it straight into the system. Because as soon as you go to battery, you've only got 360 cycles. So you're replacing batteries every, depending on how often you use them, 12 to 18 months. Do you know what it costs to recycle a solar battery? You've got to send it back to China.
Is this the lithium batteries or the lead calcium?
Still the lead calcium. They haven't got big enough lithium batteries yet. It's coming, hopefully, one day when I'm big. I'd love to. That facility down there runs on about 650 kVA. I'd love to have a solar panel array that could run it. If you do it, there are guys who are doing it, but there are guys who are doing it with, there's 2 farmers here who are doing it in a combination of solar panels and wind power. But you know when they're using it? When it's available. So for as long as the wind's blowing, they're going straight into their greenhouses. So, you know, it's operating, the ESCOM cuts off and it's operating. But if the wind doesn't blow, they're still working on ESCOM. So it's the combination of the two. We've had a look at solar panels and everything else. We're busy. I'm busy with another project now. But it'll be, once again, straight into the system, no storage. Because for the amount of electricity we use, it's just not viable to have the battery. The battery room would be almost the size of this greenhouse. Give you an idea. Look, with technology, that's the thing. Remember, solar panels 10 years ago were the in thing. And then any solar panel company that comes to you and says to you they want to come put up solar panels, say, please I'll buy a panel from you. I'm sending it to the Photo Institute in Bloemfontein. And I think I know of only 2 companies in South Africa that will let you do it. Because if you send it to the Photo Institute in Bloemfontein, they actually test the resistance and they actually test the efficiency of the solar panel for you. Remember, I'm talking big scale now. The guys who are running electric fences and that any panel will do, it's fine, it's a different story. But when you start doing this, it's a little bit different. And if this house doesn't open, what's the value of sitting in this house? Because of a dead solar panel. So we're not anti it at all, not at all. I mean, recycle all my water. I've got no municipal services here. We've got our own sewage plant. All that water gets recycled and used here. All the runoff water that you see, the green gardens outside, it's all the runoff water from here. It all gets recycled. There's that financial line between, yes, it's a good decision, and hang on, technology is getting better. The improvement in a solar panel in the last 10 years, your original solar panel was almost that thick. We can get solar panels now that are down to 15 mils thick. The big problem that we had, we didn't know. We were busy with a solar array. Temperature in Wellington gets up to 40 degrees. It actually causes more damage than anything else. But you can get a solar panel that will work at 40 degrees, but now all of a sudden the economics don't make sense. Don't make sense. People that live in the trade, you'll learn all these things. I promise. It's like fertilizer companies. You're going to learn lots about fertilizer companies. Same product and 3 different prices from the same company for the same product. Don't be scared to shop, chaps. I'm telling you now. We've discovered far too often, and quality of fertilizer determines everything. You know, everybody says, oh, you shouldn't buy this and you shouldn't buy that. Go and have a look at the price, but then you go and have a look at your production figures. You know, penny wise, pound foolish in the beginning costs you big money at the end. It really does. Cool, banana. Rock. Done. Any other questions? Okay. Here we go. The water I lose here is transpiration. That's the only water I lose. Okay. Give you an idea, 440 plants on the table. So you're looking at 4.4 plants on a square meter. Malaysia and that, they go anything up to 8 plants a square. But obviously they don't do the sizing that we do. The tables were originally designed on 240, but with the temperature in summer, we found the higher densities. We don't change the mix in the fertilizer. We don't change fertilizer concentrate. But the higher the density, the better the plants survive, because they create their own macroclimate, as you can see there. They create their own. But when we harvest the table clean. So whether you've got big or small, you take everything. So when you start producing commercially, if you're doing processing, it's a little bit easier because you've got such a wide range that you can play in as far as plant maturity goes. But when you start doing pre-packs and everything else, it gets a bit more difficult because of plant size. So that's that's the one thing. And then the other thing is variety, variety, variety. There's 3 or 4 different companies in South Africa. You're obviously all aware of them, Starkers, Mayford Seeds, those kind of guys. All of this stuff is Spanish based. It's the closest varieties, climate-wise, that we can get to compare when you compare heat units and that kind of thing. So the Spanish varieties have a tendency to do better in summer. They do horrible in winter. So on the 1st of May, the 1st of May we start switching varieties. So I switch varieties on anything up to 2 or 3 times a year, depending on our worst production times are the shoulder months, spring and autumn, because you're getting a South African variety going into a Spanish variety or the other way around. So it becomes very, very difficult with trying to predict production. These are all on fixed orders and fixed production, so I know every week I have to produce. I'll give you an idea now. This house holds just over 110,000 plants. Okay. Average weight of a plant that we send to processing now is about 150 grams. If you took it out now, these will go next week. If you had to break it off, it's 150 grams. Since the 27th of September up until first week in January, this house has already produced 12.5 tons of lettuce. When you consider each plant's only 150 grams, it becomes a bit mind-blowing. Return on capital, if you do it this way, you're looking at an 18 to 22% return on capital. But what's the trick? You've got to have the contract. You cannot do this and put it onto a local market. If you don't have a market for it, don't do it. There is school fees. You do pay school fees. Red varieties take up to a week and a half longer than green varieties. But if you've got contract, it is really worth it, because remember, this is planted 31st of January. So I know next week this is gone. It's already sold. Provided we're within the quality standards. And so you just carry on. So we've got a constant order for the rest of now up until the first week in April of about 40 seed trays. And we use a 216 seed tray. In other words, there's 216 plants. So there's 2 seed trays on a table, roundabout. So we've got a constant order of seedlings that just keep coming. I sit with them end of the week, end of the month, and we change the varieties, and then we go up to 96 trays a week. That just keep coming. So it's in the cycle the whole time. So you're literally planting at one end and harvesting on the other end. It's a full. This house is 5,500 squares, run by. They do all the planting, all the harvesting. And then obviously they've got a tractor driver as well. That's 2 people that run this whole house. Scary. Eh? If you do this open field, you're looking at a labor force of anything from 35 to 42. Open field. Just give you an idea.
So how many days does it take to plant if it's 2 people?
Those 2 people, they plant 127 trays a day.
Sure.
The biggest problem that we've got with this, the baskets that have to be washed and cleaned. We've designed a washing machine especially for them, because you break it out and you've literally got to, you leave them in the sun to dry out, and then you physically got to scrub every single one. Because remember, my biggest enemy, Pythium and Fusarium. You get Pythium or Fusarium in your main water source, good night, goodbye hydroponics. Doesn't matter what you do, you can treat it with whatever you like. Don't get rid of Pythium and Fusarium. You can do it if you use reverse osmosis, but it's going to cost you a fortune. So that's just the lettuce, and then I'll show you peppers quickly. The only thing we do is that's why we put a double net. Because if you take this off, it's a white Israeli crystalline. And that's designed especially for winter, because I magnify my UV light. Now in summer, my biggest problem with lettuce, day length's too long in the coat. You see, you guys have been, if you go up to Joburg, you see everything's under net. It's got nothing to do with sunlight or anything in Joburg. It's there for one reason. Yeah, we do it for the right reasons. We've got the white net for winter. That, if you do it without the white net, you're looking about, you lose about 10 days extra that you add on because of the cloudy days that we get. And if you, then in summer I come in, this is a 40% black and a 40% white with a 20% crystalline on top. So we're almost at 70% roundabout, if you had to measure it. Temperature difference between a black-white net like this one and an all-black and an all-white net, 7 degrees. Cooler under this than it is under 3 white crystalline nets. Sharing school fees with you.